In 1998, Marvel offered to sell a movie studio the rights to Iron Man, Black Panther, Thor, and nearly its entire roster of characters, for $25 million total. The studio said no, they only wanted one character. So instead, they paid $7 million for just him. And that single decision is the entire reason a Spider-Man movie can exist inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe today, but only because two separate billion-dollar companies had to agree to share him. With a brand new Spider-Man story taking over headlines right now, this is the perfect moment to actually explain the tangled ownership situation behind the wall crawler. Because it's genuinely one of the strangest character rights stories in all of Hollywood. To understand why this deal happened at all, you need to understand how different Marvel looked in the late 1990s compared to today. Marvel Entertainment had just emerged from bankruptcy after filing for Chapter 11 reorganization 2 years earlier. The company was in genuine financial trouble and needed cash badly. At the same time, Marvel didn't even have its own film studio yet. Marvel Studios as we know it today, the one making Avengers movies, wouldn't exist for another decade. So back then, the only way any Marvel character got onto the big screen was by licensing the rights out to whichever outside studio wanted them. And Spider-Man specifically had already been bounced around for years. Rights to the character had passed through a couple of other studios in earlier decades, but those deals expired before any film ever got made, sending the rights back to Marvel each time. So in 1998, a Sony Pictures executive opened negotiations with Marvel, hoping to license Spider-Man along with a wider group of related characters. People like Venom and Kraven the Hunter. And here's the twist almost nobody knows. Marvel actually tried to sell Sony far more than just Spider-Man. Marvel proposed selling the film rights to nearly its entire character library, Iron Man, Black Panther, Thor, and more, for a combined $25 million. Looking back now, that's an almost unthinkably low price for characters that would go on to anchor a movie franchise worth tens of billions of dollars. But at the time, it didn't look like a bargain at all. Sony's leadership reportedly turned that offer down entirely. According to accounts from the negotiation, executives felt that audiences at the time simply didn't care about characters like Iron Man or Thor. They were seen as B-list at best. Spider-Man, on the other hand, was considered one of the only truly bankable comic characters Marvel had. So Sony went back and negotiated for Spider-Man alone. The final agreement gave Sony the film and television rights to Spider-Man for $7 million, with Marvel receiving a percentage of box office revenue and a split of merchandising profits in return. It's worth remembering that Sony wasn't buying Spider-Man's comic book rights. Marvel kept publishing Spider-Man comics the entire time. This deal was specifically about who got to put him on screen. Quick pause here because this kind of, wait, that's how it actually happened? Story is exactly the kind of random question this channel lives for, so if you're enjoying peeling back the layers on stuff like this, hit subscribe and drop a comment with a topic or question you've been wondering about, because a lot of these episodes start exactly that way. Okay, back to the story, because it gets even messier from here. Here's a detail that explains why this arrangement has lasted over 25 years instead of quietly expiring like the earlier deals did. The agreement reportedly requires Sony to keep producing new Spider-Man films within a certain window of time, commonly cited as roughly every 5 to 7 years, or risk the film rights reverting back to Marvel entirely. This is exactly why Sony has kept a near-continuous stream of Spider-Man movies going since 2002. The original trilogy, then a rebooted series, then an animated franchise, and so on. Missing that window even once could have handed the entire character back to Marvel for good. So, in a very real sense, every single Spider-Man movie released since then has partly existed just to keep the license alive. The next major shift happened in 2009 when Disney acquired Marvel Entertainment entirely. This didn't undo the Sony deal. Sony still held the film rights it had already paid for. But Disney's new ownership meant Marvel suddenly had far more leverage in future negotiations, plus its own fully formed movie studio finally producing Avengers films. One early change came fairly quickly. Disney bought back Spider-Man's merchandising rights from Sony, meaning toys, clothing, and other merchandise profits shifted back toward Marvel's side, even though Sony still controlled the actual films. Then in 2015, the situation shifted again. And this is the deal most fans actually recognize because it's the reason Spider-Man could suddenly show up alongside Iron Man and Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. After Sony's own standalone Spider-Man films had started underperforming, Marvel, now backed by Disney's resources, negotiated a new shared arrangement. Under that arrangement, Marvel gets roughly 5% of box office revenue plus the ability to feature Spider-Man in its own Marvel Cinematic Universe films, while Sony keeps creative control, marketing, and distribution rights over any Spider-Man solo movies. Marvel also reacquired all merchandising rights entirely, reportedly worth around $200 million a year on its own. There's also a genuinely surprising detail buried in leaked documents from this era of negotiation. Reported contractual conditions reportedly place specific limits on how the character can be portrayed on screen, covering things like age and relationship depictions. It's a small reminder that these aren't just handshake agreements. They're incredibly detailed legal documents governing nearly every aspect of how the character can be used. Which brings us to right now. With a brand new Spider-Man story generating major buzz, this whole ownership arrangement is exactly why it's possible for Spider-Man content to feel connected to the wider Marvel Cinematic Universe, while still technically being a Sony production behind the scenes. Both companies have a direct financial and creative stake in keeping the character relevant, which is genuinely rare in Hollywood. Most licensed characters don't get this level of ongoing, actively renegotiated cooperation between two separate studios. And it's worth remembering this arrangement isn't permanent or guaranteed to last forever. These deals get renegotiated periodically, and past reporting has suggested tension between the two companies at various points, meaning the current cooperative era, as successful as it's been, is still the result of an ongoing business relationship rather than a permanent merger of the character's rights. So to bring it together, Spider-Man belongs to two different companies because of a 25-year-old licensing deal made when Marvel needed cash and didn't yet have its own film studio, a renewal clause that's kept Sony making movies almost non-stop ever since, and a 2015 renegotiation that let Marvel and Sony start sharing the character across both of their movie universes. It's less Marvel sold Spider-Man away, and more, two companies built an increasingly cooperative business relationship around one character neither side wants to give up. That's this week's random question, answered. And honestly, next time you watch one of these movies, that $7 million decision from 1998 is a wild thing to think about. If a piece of pop culture trivia has ever made you go, wait, why is that even a thing? That's exactly what this channel's for. I'll see you in the next one.